Yeah. What's going on, everybody? How are we? How are we? Thanks for joining. As you can probably tell, I've been absent this week. I have just been swamped with other things that I needed to do. And in how long is this now? 2 years? 2 years? 2020. Yeah, 2 years of doing YouTube. I have not gone a week without posting. And yeah, this is the first time, and I've just had a lot going on. There's a lot in the background that I'm working on for next year, and that unfortunately has had to take precedent over kind of like videos and stuff over the past week or so. Let me just send to this. I'll tell you what, I am still working on my deadline right now as we speak. I just thought I'd come on here and use this as a break, really, away from what I've been doing all day and have been doing for the past week and a half. But anyway, we are here now, and yeah, we'll use this opportunity to take some questions, answer some questions, have a little bit of an interaction. I'm gonna put 45 minutes on the clock essentially for this. So if you do have questions, this is the perfect opportunity for you to fire those out. Um, to be honest, I've not really caught up with a lot of the financial news at the moment. What I was looking at earlier today was, inflation rates and stuff, because the last video that I did post was about the fact that mortgage rates had dropped last week. And I definitely saw that in a conversation that I had to fix my mortgage this week. And so when I look at it, inflation numbers, inflation is still pretty high. I mean, there aren't that many places that have got inflation in the single digits anymore. And maybe actually I need to show you this because it's really, really interesting when you have a look at it. Actually, when you look at the G20 numbers, let me just share this quickly. Um, so these are the inflation numbers across the G20. Obviously, China's got like 1.6% in inflation here, but numbers coming out of China, you always have to question these things, right? So, look, Saudi Arabia, Switzerland, 3%. I mean, okay, they're the Swiss after all. So you got Japan, 3.7. You got South Korea, 5%. Indonesia, 5.4. Brazil, 5.9. France, 6.2. Singapore, 6.7. India, 6.77. Then you start getting into like the double digits. I mean, the Netherlands at 9.9%. The States have got theirs down to 7.7. But then you look at the Euro area, 10%. Germany, 10%. The UK, 11.1. Italy, 11.8. Russia, 12%. I mean, look at this number for Turkey. And it's mad. 84% inflation. Argentina, 84% inflation. I mean, these are outliers right here, right? So there's a lot going on there for that to happen. But when you look at us compared to, Italy's the only one, and Russia, Italy's really the only one with a higher inflation rate than we have. And so there's still this massive question mark over when the Monetary Policy Committee meet next, what's going to happen to inflation? Inflation, the interest rates, because there was this kind of narrative put out there that they didn't think that interest rates would have to rise as sharply as previously forecasted, which is why we've kind of seen mortgage rates take a bit of a slowdown. But if inflation remains at that number or if it ticks up, they're gonna have to do something. So how much of this is actually priced in? I'm not really sure, if I'm honest, guys. And so then we get into the same question, the same discussion that we've been having this entire time. What do you do? What do you do? I think the only thing you can do is make the decision that you think is best for you, given the information that we have. Right. So there are a couple of things on here. So someone's asking here, what are your views on mortgage rates and house values over the next 12 months? I think it will be hopeful to think that mortgage rates will fall. It depends on how much is priced in, and that we don't know just yet. We just don't know, so it's hard to say. I think property values. I mean, the predictions are very varied. They're quite widespread. People are saying that we're going to see a double digit property crash in the 20s. Some people saying in the 30s. Some people saying, well, actually, it's not going to be as bad as that. That the housing market in the UK is pretty resilient because obviously the supply versus demand equation, all that kind of stuff. There is a lot of stuff that goes in behind it as well. So, when you start thinking about job losses, that will impact that equation quite significantly if we get to next year and jobs start going. If we get to next year and once the mortgage rates start coming off, inflation is peaked and the base rate goes up and mortgage rates are out there, that's going to impact the equation as well, because then you might have people defaulting, properties coming on the market because of defaults. It's really, really hard to say right now. I think anyone who's saying that they can predict exactly what's going to happen is talking out their ass, really. But it's hard to predict. It's very, very hard to predict. But these numbers that we're seeing right here in terms of the inflation numbers, they're not anyway. They're just not sustainable. They're really, really not. If you go onto interest rates right now, these interest rates, we're still at 3 at this point in time, right? Where's the states? Where's the states? Where are they? Let's go America. Try and whittle that down. The states are at 4%. I mean, people are saying that we're probably looking at interest rates in the UK possibly going up to 4 or 5%. So when you consider that, actually, let's just go back. Let's go Europe, because we're going to be in there. When you start thinking about the UK position, we're still at 3. So if they're saying 4, 4.5, maybe even 5, there's still 2% left to go in terms of headroom. Again, is this all going to be priced in? Don't really know. So there's a lot of variables at the moment, a lot of uncertainty. I think I'm getting a lot of questions saying, should I fix now? Should I not? What should I do? I'm saying to people, look, go and speak to a mortgage professional, and just let them guide you. I mean, they're not going to give you and say, we think this is going to happen, because they're not allowed to. They just won't. So again, you probably want a little bit of like, what do you think is going to happen from a professional point of view? They're probably not going to do that, because they'll be scared to death that if they say X and that doesn't happen and it influences your decision, then the advice that they give you is then incorrect, which can be a little bit frustrating, but I can see where they're coming from. But we just don't know. I think if you're in a situation at the minute where you're looking at mortgages and you're thinking you should fix and you're worried, it's better to be safe than sorry. That's my opinion. Okay. So I'm going to fix mine, because I'd rather not be like, I wait, I don't do anything. Then in 4 months' time, the rates have gone up significantly and I could have locked in now. I'd rather deal with that peace of mind in knowing, okay, look, that eventuality is covered, in opposed to, I should have fixed and I didn't. That's my philosophy. That's my thinking around it anyway. So, so someone's saying here, do I think that there will be a 3.5 base rate on Thursday? Look, if they increase the base rate, I think the minimum we'll see is 0.5%. I think it could be even more than that. It depends on if the number stays pretty stable. If it stays at 11.5, all right, they might say, okay, 0.5% to bring it down. But if the new numbers come in and it's higher than that, I would expect them to be more aggressive. But that's just my guessing. I don't know. So Thursday is going to be an interesting day to find out what's going to happen. But if they don't increase the base rate, I'll be very, very surprised. And they would have to have positive factors for them not to increase the base rate, given the language that had been used previously. Right, just scrolling here, guys. Christopher's on here. Yeah, so this is again on interest rates. So I have any predictions for the next 1 to 5 years? I think over the next 1 to 2 years, I think we'll see interest rates go up. What happens past that, I don't know. I think it is quite possible that it will come back down, because when you look at the forecast from the Office of Budget Responsibility, they're saying, or at least they're predicting, that interest rates will start to come down. I think they're saying from like 2024 onwards. So there is a good possibility that interest rates will come back down after that point. But, you would hope that the Office of Budget Responsibility will get this right, but everything that's happened up until now, like, so, we've seen what 8 or 9 interest rate rises since December last year. So this is, interest rate rises started a year ago this month. And none of those interventions have worked so far. We've just seen inflation get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So you hope that the Office of Budget Responsibility have got this right, but you just don't know. You don't know. I mean, the skeptics among people will just say that they are forecasting the best with the hopes that they don't spook anybody. And I don't necessarily think that's necessarily true. I think maybe sometimes they do play fast and loose with the truth because they don't want to panic people. And when you hear things like, there is a mortgage bailout in the budget that, wasn't necessarily spoken about, it wasn't voiced in any way, shape, or form. It was just there in the detail. People can ask questions about that. It does raise questions. But I think ultimately the government is aware that we're in a sticky situation. So whenever you see things like that, you kind of have to kind of pay attention to it. That to me says that they're aware that, if interest rates do go up, people are going to struggle to pay their mortgages. And that's a little bit of help. Now, you're taking an interest-free loan on the equity of your house only to cover the interest payments of your mortgage, not your actual capital. It's going to be a big call for a lot of people. It's going to be a big, big call for a lot of people if we get round to that point in spring. But who knows? What do you think the odds are the financial system collapsing and the world going through the Great Reset, where millions of people lose their cash and assets forever? How would you hedge against this, mate? I don't think there's a possibility that will happen. There'll be things that governments and the World Bank and the IMF would do to step in to prevent that from happening. It just wouldn't happen. How you would hedge against that, I don't know, because it doesn't matter what you hold. You can't go and buy gold, which will always be a currency. Governments buy up gold, so you couldn't get your hands on any tangible amount of gold. I mean, maybe you could, but you'll be hard pressed. If that were to happen, gold would go through the roof. People wouldn't be able to afford it. But I don't think that there is a chance that would happen. I don't think so. Not in the current financial system. Although, famous last words, right? England is coming home. Hey, listen, I watched that match yesterday and I was like, okay, a little bit unlucky. Don't get me started on the whole media thing, though. I mean, it is. I posted on Instagram a little bit earlier, and this isn't to be controversial in any way, but I think because people refute the truth when it's in front of them, this is a prime example of when people's biases come to light, right? And people will say, "Oh, you're causing an argument or pointing out something that doesn't need to be pointed out." And I disagree. I think it does need to be pointed out because in the Euros, when Sancho, Rashford, and Bukayo Saka missed those penalties, people were saying, you're overreacting to the abuse that they got. Well, here we have the exact same situation where a player misses a penalty, and the overwhelming sentiment is, "Oh, he's a legend, and what a great effort, and blah 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 blah." Okay, I'm not saying that that's wrong. 100%, we should be backing the boys. 100%, Harry will be fine. Okay, he'll learn from that. He's a great player. I mean, Hugo Lloris. I mean, when he stepped to take the second penalty, I was like, nah, they should get somebody else to take this because clearly it's going to play on your mind. That's your teammate. You play with him for years. He knows where you go. Of course, that's going to play in your mind. But the simple fact is, he missed the penalty. If that was somebody else who looked like me with my skin tone, Jesus Christ would see another repeat of what happened with the Euros, right? Just abuse. And I think it is important that we point out the difference in those circumstances. And as much as people may not like it, tough luck. This is the world that we basically live in. And it's not to be controversial in any way, but it is to hold up a mirror and say, like, listen, this is when things turn out to be different, but they are coming home. Good effort all around. And it would have been great to get to the semi-finals with Morocco because, I mean, look, you can't take Morocco for granted. I mean, they they knocked out Portugal, and I can't remember who they played the match before that. I mean, if anything, they've got like grit, determination, and like then they don't give up. Ziyech, Jesus Christ, like you never know what's going to happen. You've got to beat what's in front of you, but it was an opportunity for sure, 100%, and they are coming home. And I think, ultimately, France were lucky. There were lots of stuff that didn't go in our favour yesterday, and they played a brilliant second half. The first half was a little bit frustrating with all the back passes and stuff, but second half was better, and I think they deserved to win, but they didn't. So we go again in the Euros, and we have to wait another 4 years for the World Cup. I wish I could have gone to Qatar actually, to be fair, because it looked awesome. It looked absolutely amazing. Anyway, let's go. I can see a very big recession come over the next few years. I think we are heading towards a recession, a slowdown, generally speaking. I think that is definitely the case. How long? I mean, they're saying that it's going to last It's going to last for 12 months, 4 quarters, 4 consecutive quarters. Again, are they playing a little gentle with that? Could it be longer? I think it'll be a little bit longer because I think ultimately, energy prices and that whole cauldron of an issue is going to have a big impact moving forward. Most definitely. So we'll see. Someone's just saying here that we hope in 2023 and 24 we don't get into depression. I think everybody's hoping that right now, mate. 100%. Everybody's hoping that right now. Christopher, what's Christopher saying? Hi, Speak. Can you explain your views on how the base rate feeds through to the interest rates available for savers for fixed bonds? Okay. So basically, what tends to happen is the base rate dictates the lending rates that the banks use for like mortgages and savings rates, essentially. Okay. So when the bank rate increases, what that basically means is that effectively the rates in which money is lent to banks also go up, right? So particularly for savers, right? For savers, it means, whilst you might think that it doesn't actually balance, because if the lending rate for money to the banks actually goes up, you will think that's costing them more money, and it is. But from a saver's point of view, lending and saving are kind of like on this opposite spectrum, right? So on a saver's point of view, the banks have the choice of increasing the rate of interest to the savers. What they have been doing recently is, because it's a cost to them, they don't then pass that on to the savers as quickly as possible. But because lending generates them income, right? So let's imagine, right? If it costs you more money to borrow money from a central bank on a central bank rate, you pass that cost on to the people that you lend money to. So what they do is, on the lending side, they will immediately pass that cost on, because effectively, well, look, it's a money earner for them, right? Whereas in savings, it's not necessarily the same. It does cost them a little bit of cash, so it's not treated as the same. And so what you'll find is, when the bank rate goes up by 0.75%, savers are not necessarily going to get that trickle down to them immediately. They will increase their savings rate to what they feel makes business sense to them, so it doesn't impact the bottom line too much. Now, sometimes you will find banks like First Direct, who will offer like a 7% regular saver. That will often be a loss leader for them. They won't make money on the savings account, but what they will do is, if you open an account with them and you, I don't know, take a credit card or something like that, that's where they'll make money. So they do that as a loss leader. Now, on fixed rate bonds, if you're going into like a fixed rate bond with a bank, for example, right? So nationwide fixed rate bond, 1 year to 5 year. Let's say you had a 3 year one and they're offering, I don't know, 2.5%, right? They are still going to try and forecast what the interest rate is going to be in 3 years' time to make sure that they get their pricing right. But they will always, always, always price the rate that they offer you below what they think the threshold is. So there's a little bit of headroom for them. And obviously, what they're doing with your money whilst you place it with them is they'll lend that out in mortgages and personal loans and all that stuff that they're earning money on. This is where people get really annoyed with the banking system and say that it's all pretty effed up. But that's the system that we work in, right? And when you think of it that way, it's like it's a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. But that's technically how it works. I just lost my space. Where was I? One second, one second, one second. Let's just skip all the way down to the bottom. Where was I? There we go. Okay, cool. I'm with you. Aha. Okay. Thank you for giving your honest views. I saw you on GB News the other month, and you talked sense. Thanks. Thank you. So, all right, I was going to do a live stream where I spoke about that, and I was going to do it like I looked at literally the last week has been it's been mad. It's been freaking mad, and yeah, I was going to do a live stream where I actually spoke about that because when I did that show, and it's weird, right? So obviously, I've done Lorraine, I do Steph Pack Lunch. That show was the only show that I've been on where my phone was going absolutely nuts. It was crazy. And I got a lot of messages, a lot of DMs, and actually a lot of people on Instagram actually watched GB News. I didn't know this. They were like, "Oh, it was really good to see you sit down with Nigel." Now, I wouldn't normally sit down with someone like Nigel Farage because his outlook on life is completely different to mine. It is the complete opposite. Like he's on one end, I'm on this end. Like to meet in the middle, you would say is a recipe for disaster. And if I'm completely honest, I got the phone call to do that show, and I said to my agent, I was like, "Nah, I don't want to do it." And she goes, "Why not?" I said, "Look, I don't like Nigel, so I'm not going to sit down with somebody and like have a conversation if he's likely to be, I'm going to use bad language here, if he's likely to be a dick." And I was like, if he's going to be a dick to me, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because bearing in mind, it is live TV. And my natural inclination is if you're going to be a dick, I'm going to mug you off and my temper will get the best of me. That was my biggest fear. But she was like, "Oh no, he'll be fine," and all that kind of stuff and blah 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 blah. And this is why I'm going to start talking about stuff where it makes me, I don't want to feel like I'm bragging or being pompous or anything like that. But I was doing pack lunch the week before, and Kerry Kitona was in the studio, and she was like, "Oh, I did Nigel's show last week. It was really, really fun." I was like, "Oh, what is he like?" And he goes, "Oh, he's actually okay when you speak to him and all that kind of stuff." And I was like, "Oh," and she goes, "If you ever get the opportunity to do it, you should definitely do it because like he will challenge you if he needs to challenge you, but you can have a really nice conversation with him." And so I went back to my agent. And I was like, "Okay, look, maybe I'll have a look at it, but I just want to know what does he want to talk to me about." So we had a brief of what he wanted to cover before we actually agreed to have it done. But in hindsight, would I go back and do it? Yeah, I would actually, because I had a really good conversation with him afterwards, just on financial education and why it's not taught in schools and his views. And his views were kind of like, well, if you do too much for people don't necessarily take responsibility. So, and I was like, okay, that doesn't necessarily make any sense. But hey, you've been an MP, so that's your view. That's interesting. So it was interesting to do. Would I do it again? Mm, maybe if we had something tangible to speak about. Would I go for a beer with him? No, because we're just from two different sides of the world of the spectrum, and I don't think that we would really be able to kind of have any kind of common ground on the key things that he believes to be true. Um, and I don't. I mean, it's interesting his first comment, and I might still do that live where I actually go through the interview and give you my thoughts as I watch it back with you guys. But the way he opened it, I was like, okay, I don't like the way you've opened it. It was something along the lines of, you've had a you've had a dodgy past, something like that. And that made it sound as though I was selling drugs and mugging people and all that kind of stuff. So I intentionally was like, okay, my parents came over as immigrants just to throw that in there because I am a byproduct of immigration. My parents came over in the 70s. And if my parents hadn't come over here, I wouldn't be here. But I am a productive contribution to society. I pay a lot of tax. I run a business. I have been a very, very productive contribution to my industry, but I'm a byproduct of immigration. So I wanted to throw that in straight off the bat, just so that he knows that I'm not going to allow, little underlying tones, and I'm not going to stand for it. But the rest of it was pretty civil. And yeah, the stuff we were talking about with the state pension, I think is true, and he doesn't think it's going to be around either. So we agree on that part. But yeah, we're just on different sides of the world, I guess. Different sides of the world. But thanks for that. I've just lost where I am because there we go. Okay, cool. Yes, someone just saying here, good news, we hopefully be buying shares investments at lower rates over the next few years. So there's always an upside. Remember, Warren Buffett invested in the 70s and he's doing okay. That is very, very true. And, I'm holding cash right now, looking at where I'm going to deploy more money into. But then again, my goal, my short term goal is getting ever closer. So I was saying this on Instagram a little bit earlier on. I'm going to get to the stage where in the new year, I need to seriously consider my portfolio and my cash positions because I need cash later on in the year if we go ahead with the goals that I've set and have had set now for 2 years. So that's getting ever close. This thing keeps skipping around in the comments. Where am I? One sec. Okay, we're here. All right. Telinator, how you doing? Evening. Okay, so I've read this in the news. I've caught wind of this, but I don't know the detail of it, mate. So I can't really comment because I'm not too sure what they're looking to deregulate specifically. I know that they spoke about deregulating some of the things for bankers, right? And that was in the Liz Truss budget, trying to basically attract more talent into financial services because we've lost a lot of talent that have gone elsewhere, and financial services is a big sector here in the UK. So I don't know exactly what they're talking about deregulating specifically. Look, what I would hope is that if they are going to deregulate some aspects, they're not going to go gun ho and do what they did that allowed the banks to take more risk than they should have been taking, that led to the whole 2007 2008 recession. But with that being said, though, what's happened since 2007, 2008 is a lot of the banks now have liquidity requirements. So, in other words, if they have X amount of money at stake for a trade or a bit of investment business that they're doing, they have to cover that liquidity uh, risk with a buffer, right? They have to have a buffer that can satisfy that liquidity risk. That didn't exist prior to 2007 2008. It does now. So if they do deregulate, I hope that doesn't go away because that's the safety net that is now been put in place. But I don't know because I haven't looked at the detail. I caught a glimpse of it in the middle of the week because it was all over the news, but I didn't look at the detail, and I probably do need to have a look at the detail to be able to give a proper view of it. But that's just generally my thoughts. One thing that I did notice in the Liz Truss budget was that they were talking about Solvency 2. Solvency 2 is the big thing because Solvency 2 is that requirement that you need to have cash set aside. If they get rid of that, that's not good. That's bad news. So I'm hoping it's not that. I'm hoping it's something else. But I haven't looked at the detail, mate. So VM, how you doing, mate? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good evening, Western Goddess. Andy's on here as well. Evening, mate. How you doing? What do I think about Central? Hang on, 1 second. Click the wrong one here. Oh yeah, no, this is the right one. Okay, cool. I think it's going to take the government a while to get this off the ground. Um, I don't think it's going to be as quick as everybody's expecting it to be. I really, really don't. Look, the bit that everyone's been up in arms about is the fact that it's programmable, right? Programmable. And the theory is they can limit what you spend. Look, we don't know what it looks like. So let's not speculate about those kind of things now because all you're basically doing is you're causing hysteria. Right? We don't know what it's going to look like. The government is notoriously slow at developing things like this. They have to figure out a way for it to actually intersect and integrate with the existing system. Legacy systems. That is a tall order. If this happens within a decade, I'll be amazed. But I think the direction of travel, it has to happen. It simply has to happen. And this is the downside of having technology like the blockchain and Bitcoin and all of this stuff come to the forefront, right? Because governments start getting involved, saying, right, how can we use this? But I don't see this happening in the next decade. If it does, I'll be shocked. I'll be absolutely shocked. They have to integrate it into the existing system, and I don't yet understand how they're going to do that. I'm sure they've got really big brains working on it, but I think it's going to come. It's just a question of when. Will it be programmable? Will they limit people's freedoms and try and dictate to you what you can and you can't buy? I don't believe that they will. I just don't. But maybe that's just me being naive. But I just don't. But I think it is definitely coming down the line for sure. What are my thoughts on investing metal, especially in the coming months? I mean, look, I think can I? I don't know if I can see them on here. Can I? Markets, commodities. Let's see what they're doing. Commodities. All right, let's have a look at this. Let me come back here. Sorry, I need you to see this properly. So let's go this way. All right. So this is gold right now. All right. So where are we? This is November. It's taken a nice steep climb here since November. So I mean, look, when you get into inflationary periods and you get into periods where there's a real risk of recession and markets crashing, you are going to see increase in the values of things like gold. I mean, what's that? 7.1%. It's up right now. Yep, up 7.1%. If you have a look at silver, up 0.36%. What else can we see on here? Let's go on more. This is the commodities page. Platinum up 22.1. Okay, actually, let's have a look at this one. Let's see how this is doing. Okay, it's a little bit of a, I wouldn't say a sharper rise, but actually, it's not been as depressed as the gold chart has. I mean, I think precious metals will always be good for diversifying. They always will be. They will always be a safe haven, if you will. I think that the issue that most people face is, well, if you go and buy gold or silver or platinum, do you buy physical or do you buy an ETF? If you buy physical, you've got to transport it, you've got to store it safely. It can be a bit of a ball ache. If you're buying an ETF, then yeah, you're going to have that volatile price movement, price action. But it will at least allow you to get in and get out as and when you see fit. But if you're looking to diversify into something that has the potential to increase in value over the course of the next 1 to 2 years, especially if we enter into a recession, then yeah, it's always going to be a good bet. But it's still going to be a little bit volatile, and I think that's important for people to kind of understand. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Someone's just reminding. Morocco beat Spain and Portugal. Who are they? So they're going to be playing France. Look, I can they? I mean, Mbappe was a little bit quiet yesterday, but then again, they didn't really. Am I being too kind if I said that they didn't need him? He wasn't in the game. He didn't really do much, right? I mean, he did kind of play a little part in that first goal because I think they panicked, and once he released the ball, it was like kind of like, okay, we've got rid of the issue now. It went out to what's his name, the guy who scored. I can't remember his name now. And then they get that goal, but I hope it would be great to see Morocco in the final. It would be amazing to see a country that had never been there in the final. I mean, they're already trailblazing anyway, but I don't know. I personally think, could it be Messi's year? I mean, that's going to make him the GOAT for sure, right? That's one over. That's one over Ronaldo. That, listen, it's a big stake, and it will be interesting to see if they get to the final. There's a good chance that Argentina win. I would like to see Messi lift it, to be fair, but it's going to be one hell of a final if it is Argentina and France. One hell of a final, and I think Argentina will edge it if they do. Anyway, but let's have a look. Any advice for first-time buyers given the current economy? Look, okay, so look, I have spoken about this. Um, so first time buyers do have a little bit of an issue right now. House prices, obviously, if they come down, they've got mortgage rates potentially going up. If we enter into a recession next year, then what the lenders are likely to do is they're also going to tighten their affordability criteria. So it could be a little bit harder for you to get on the property ladder. And then to compound that, help to buy is gone. It's finished. No more, right? So you're not even getting that help with your deposit anymore in terms of a government scheme. So what should you do as a a first time buyer? I think it's still worthwhile looking around and not necessarily pulling up the drawbridge and not paying any attention to properties that you might want to go buy. I think it's still a good idea to keep your ear to the ground and continue looking, because you might find something that you think, you know what, it's a great opportunity. The price has come down quite a bit. Let's strike while the iron's hot. But I think it is important that you take advice. You really do need to take advice from a mortgage advisor. What some of the lenders are doing. So I spoke at an event for Barrett's about a month and a half ago, and a lot of the developers do have like deposit booster schemes. They've got a lot to help first time buyers. So if you've got 5 grand deposit, they'll give you another 5 grand. So it's worthwhile also speaking to the developers to see what schemes they have available, because that will be some much needed help for you. Obviously, you got lifetime ISAs, all that kind of stuff, but I think pay attention, still be looking at properties. And you know what? I know that people are saying, hold fire. If property falls 30%, you're going to buy a property way, way cheaper. But what happens if it doesn't? The UK property market has this real knack of not doing what it's supposed to, you know, of, oh, we think it's going to fall, but actually property prices keep going up because of the supply versus demand issue, right? So I think continue to have a look and, do what you feel is right for you. There's a lot of information out here at the moment that obviously is there to guide you and to give you some kind of insight. But I think what the most important thing is that you make the decision that you feel is best for you. And it may not be the perfect decision, but if you feel comfortable and you feel confident in that decision, then that's what you should do. If you can get a house, your dream house, your dream first home for 15 grand cheaper because property values have fallen, hey, listen, go for it. Absolutely go for it. But I think with mortgage rates looking to creep up, you have to be mindful. If property prices do not fall, prices continue to creep up, or mortgage rates continue to creep up, and then lenders tighten their affordability criteria, which they will next year if we continue to go into a recession, you may find it even harder to get the amount that you need, even though property prices have come down. Those are my thoughts as an ex-mortgage advisor. This is a really good question because I actually posted a poll in January about this, right? So in January, I was talking about the fact that ultra long mortgages are here, like 20, 30-year mortgages. And I remember posting a poll on Instagram asking people, would you ever lock into a 15, 20, 25-year mortgage? The sentiment back then was an overwhelming no. I would never do that. And it's interesting to see now that actually more people are looking to fix for much, much longer. I was speaking to someone about a week and a half ago, 10-year fixed. And I'm like, okay. I mean, there are 10-year fixes right now for about 5%. 5%, 10-year fixed. So that's security in your mortgage payments for 10 years is pretty big. Yes, you have the downside of, okay, look, if rates tend to fall off, you're paying more and then you might have a massive early repayment charge. But I remember doing a video in the new year at the beginning of the year that had an offer of these ultra long 10, 15-year mortgages, but with no early repayment charge. And I'm like, well, if that is the case, it seemed a little bit too good to be true back then. But if that is the case, it's almost a no brainer. As long as you're happy with the fact that, look, it's a long time to be fixed in psychologically. And, they do this in the States. In the States, they take out 10, 15-year fixed rate mortgages. They do this all the time. But in the UK, because in the 70s, we saw, interest rates at 12, 15%. Well, the only place for interest rates to go were down. That they couldn't go any higher. They could only come down. And since the 70s, we've seen interest rates come down. And so we got into this culture of fixing for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then rebrokering because and rates are likely to come down. We're now at the flip of that equation, where now the only place the interest rates are going to go are up. So thinking about 30, 40-year, 10-year, 15-year mortgages now is back on the table because of this this concern around what's going to happen with interest rates moving forward. I mean, will we get into interest rates at 10, 12%? I hope not. I hope not. I mean, famous last words and all that. I really, really hope not. Um, but you never know. All right, guys. So I'm going to take a couple more. If you've not smashed the like button already, Shaz and people like Shaz always remind people to smash the like button. There are 19 at the moment. There's over 70 of us here right now. So if you can smash the like and get that up to like 30, 40, that would be amazing. It just means that if other people who are looking for this kind of information jump on YouTube, the YouTube algorithm is more likely to recommend this video to them, and it helps the channel out as well. So much appreciated. Let's have a look at a couple more questions before I sign off. I'm just scanning 1 second. When is the right time to buy a house? I think I've already covered that a little bit, maybe. I just haven't been on the live for so long. Just came back from London. Good man. Moroccan fans were crazy celebrating in central London. I can imagine. All right, let's have a look at this one. Pete, my friend has inherited some money from her grandma and is thinking to pay off her student loan. But I keep telling her this is a waste of money and she should use the money to buy a house. Thoughts? Yes, I would agree with you. Um, well, it depends on how much she's inherited. If she's inherited a large amount of money, where paying off the student loan isn't going to prevent her from like buying a house, having some money left over to buy a house, then by all means, pay off the student loan. But if she's inherited enough, well, she's inherited an amount that is either pay off student loan or buy a house, I would buy a house. The reality is with a student loan, it doesn't impact your affordability. It doesn't go against you in any way. So like, if you go to a mortgage broker right now and you go to a bank and say you want to apply for a mortgage, they will take down your personal loans, your car finance, your credit card debt, right? And those three things will reduce how much you can borrow quite significantly. And it's not pound for pound, because people think I've got £10,000 worth of like a personal loan, then they're going to reduce the amount I can borrow from £200,000 to 190. No, it's a multiple of. So £10,000 could cost you 25 grand in borrowing. So those three things are counted. Student loans aren't. Doesn't impact you at all. So while student loan, a lot of the time, is very psychological, is that psychological burden. Oh my God, I owe 30, 40 grand in student loans. I need to pay this back. It's not going to hinder your prospects moving forward. Yes, you got to pay interest, but it's not going to hinder your prospects. So when you start to weigh that up with, should I buy a house that is likely going to appreciate in value? The smarter move is to buy the house and let it appreciate in value. You can release some equity from the property later on and pay off the student loan if you wanted to. If you wanted to. But I would be with you. Buy the house. All right, one more. The France team is all Griezmann. Yes, 100%. Messi, the human growth hormone machine sponsored by FIFA. I tell you what, though. Do when you watch Messi play in his club, right? You know that he plays the way he plays. It's very, very rare that you see that translated into a national team. Like, people are just scared to death when he's running up. You see players congregate around him, and he's so clever. He just knows when to pass it off. I would love to see him in the final. I would love to see him win. I would have loved to see Bernardo win, but I am a United fan. I don't like the interview that he did. I agree with some of the stuff that he said, but it's like, maybe your ego's getting a little bit too big, mate. Like, seriously, a little bit too big. Someone says Zidane is the GOAT. Zidane is the GOAT. I mean, that guy, Jesus Christ. It's a shame that he ended his international career in the way that he did, headbutting that guy. in the World Cup, because that is the lasting impression and memory that people have of Zidane. It's definitely what I have of Zidane in headbutting this guy, getting red carded. That was his last international game. He retired. It's like it's such a poor way to end your career, but a glittering career anyway. And then he did all that stuff as a manager with Real Madrid and won all those Champions Leagues as well. Um, Someone just put a really good thing on here. Remember, P, it's the content of everyone's character that defines them, not their appearance. That's very, very true. 100%. Okay, let's have a look at this question. Last question. Has anyone, as someone who has a pot of cash for their first home purchase, ideally within the next year, what to do in the meantime? Not wanting to lock it um, away out of reach, or have it eaten by inflation. Mate, look, I see what you're saying, mate, but there is no way you're not going to have that money not be eaten by inflation, unless you can get a savings account that's going to pay you 11.1%. There just isn't. So it is the trade-off, mate. Even if you were to lock it up, even if you went like a 1-year fixed rate bond, you're not going to get 11.1%. I mean, I think there are 1-year fixed rate bonds going for, I don't know, 2.5%, 3% right now. It's nowhere near, right? So you're not going to be able to beat inflation. But I think ultimately, it's all about staying grounded in what the goal is to buy a house. You've got the cash there. Just monitor house prices. If house prices do fall, obviously you get to retain a little bit more of that deposit. So in kind of a roundabout way, you get the balance, right? You get the balance of inflation with possible falls in house prices. So just keep hold of it, mate, and just see what happens. Definitely don't invest it. Please don't invest it. It's too short a time. Too risky right now. Way too volatile. But yeah, just keep it. Look, maybe premium bonds and S&I premium bonds, maybe. The account with Chip, potentially they've got a 10 grand draw. So I don't know how much you've got, but every pound or every £100 or so is like is an entry into the draw. So you could win 10 grand. Maybe look at that. I'll post a link actually in the comments after we finish going live here to that, if you haven't already had a look at it. But maybe have a look at maybe a few places where you can disperse it. But the idea of not getting inflation to heat into it, it's going to be pretty hard, mate. Pretty hard. All right. Okay, cool. Cheers, guys. Thank you so much for watching and being here. Thank you so much. I'm working towards a deadline, so there will be no videos next week. I've got to get this deadline done. If I can't afford not to meet this deadline, and it's a massive, massive commitment. The deadline was January the 6th. They brought it to December 16th. And it's a big, big project. It's something that has been on my to-do list. If I created a wish list at the beginning of 2020, this was probably number 2. And so whilst it's very, very stressful. I'm ill at the moment as well. It's extremely overwhelming. I feel under enormous pressure. I put this out into the world and, said, if I could ever do this, this would be amazing. And now I have the opportunity to do it. So as difficult as it is, I've basically got to work through it. And so there'll be no videos next week. There may not be any videos for the rest of the year, to be honest, because by the time next week is over, we're entering into the Christmas week, and I desperately need to take some time off. I've not really had any time off this year, and then New Year kicks off, and there's already things going on already for the new year. It's going to be really, really busy. So I'm just giving you guys the heads up. It means that the channel is just going to dwindle off. But hopefully not. I don't know. I don't really know what's going to happen, but I know I need to meet this deadline. And once I have met the deadline and I'm able to make an announcement as to what I've been working on, you guys will be the first to know. It's really exciting. It's really, really, really exciting. And it's a massive, massive tick in my list. Massive tick. And I can't wait to be able to share it with you guys and to get it out into the world. And hopefully you guys will be able to enjoy it as well. And hopefully you'll support the efforts with it too. But yeah, that's what I just wanted to say. There will be some changes to the channel in the new year as well. There's a lot that I've been working on in the background. So all of that will come out and be known in the coming weeks, certainly in January. But so far, look, if we don't speak, thank you so much for this year. It's been amazing. Like, it's been amazing. I can't tell you how amazing it's been. And it's been difficult at times. It really, really has. If I compare the YouTube journey as a silo on its own compared to 2021, it hasn't been the same. In 2021, the channel was nuts. It was crazy. We were picking up like 1,000 subscribers a month, and I knew that that was very much a high, um, and it wasn't really sustainable at that point because people are still in the house. People are still watching investment content. Now we're in a completely different space, and so what I'm talking about isn't necessarily sexy. It never has been sexy, and so where everything's kind of fallen off. I expect that my channel also falls off, and I'm not the Sashas and the Damiens of this world that will make it like really sexy and kind of entertaining and maybe a little bit controversial here there. That's not my personality. It's not me. I'm never going to do that. So I'm content with the way the channel's gone. I mean, last month doing live streams, the channel was back at the level of views that it was in 2021 because of the topical nature of the stuff that I was covering. In the new year, I'm likely going to be doing more live streams around topical stuff. Um, if that works, I don't know just yet. But I do want to branch out and speak about things that are more around the periphery of money, like life topics that relate to money. Because when I look at it, with everything that's happened this year, what I haven't been able to do is share the journey and the things that I've gone through, the things that I've learned, the things that I've experienced, the things that have happened in the background that you guys have no doubt seen, but you've not seen any of the process that went into it. And if I could do anything again, I wish that I had started to share some of the process with you guys so that you knew what was going on behind the scenes. It may look very sexy and appealing that I've done, Channel 4 this year, I've done Lorraine this year, I've done Steph Pack Lunch this year, I'm going back next year, they're extending me into next year. That all looks and sounds very sexy, but there's a lot of stuff that's happened in the background. There's a lot of sacrifices that happened in the background as well, and I haven't really shared any of that. And I wish that I had, because I think maybe you guys would have a more of an insight into what it basically takes. Certainly, because there are a lot of people who follow this channel who kind of want to do something similar, maybe in their own industry, or their own sector. And there's lots and lots of things that I've learned. And I've managed to be able to build a business that in the end I never thought was going to be possible in 2020. A lot has happened. It's been nuts. It's been absolutely nuts. And with the project that I'm working on right now, that is just a cherry on top of an already lovely cake. And what happens from here on out, I don't know. I honestly don't. I wish I could take full credit in the fact that I planned all of this. I didn't. A lot of the stuff that I've done on the channel has been very much reactive and trying to be organic and trying to do what I felt was right, and help people. And that's really been the ethos of the channel. It's not been about money. I could have done a lot more crypto content. I did some crypto content, but I could have done a lot more sponsored crypto content when it was really popping in 2021. I said no to a lot of them because I just didn't feel as though it was my niche, and it is not my niche. And I don't necessarily want to be talking about things that I don't. It's all been organic up until now. It will still continue to be organic next year to a certain extent, although I'm now fully aware that I need to put a little bit of structure around it. I'm trying to figure that out. But there's a lot of stuff happening at this point, and you guys have been on the journey with me, Andy. All of you guys. I can reel off names upon names upon names of people who have been in the comment section constantly, who are there with me on Instagram constantly, and people who have just joined, who may have only just found me because of Steph Pack Lunch or because of Channel 4. I appreciate every single one of you, particularly the day ones, because you've seen the transition and you've seen the growth. But it's been great to be on it, but at the same time, it's been extremely tough. And maybe next year I'll be able to bring you part of that journey as well, because I think it is relevant. And I think that anybody who's in my space, and particularly kids who are from my background, who want to do something different, who are well spoken, like I think I am, who don't necessarily want to, be the stereotype or the statistic, they can at least maybe look at what I've done here and replicate a little bit of that. That's really what I'm about, and that's really what I want to achieve with this. And yes, I want to inform and educate people on what to do with money. That's always going to be the thing, always be the thing. But there's a step beyond that. And I want to do stuff in schools, and I want to be able to do stuff that will actually change the financial education system. But in order for that to happen, there are stepping stones. And part of what I've been doing this year and part of what I've been trying to build this year is a stepping stone towards that. I don't know whether I'm going to get there. If I had Martin Lewis's profile, believe me, I'll be doing it right now already. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but it is baby steps. And that's all I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to make the right decisions along the way so I can still keep my lights on and pay the bills. But it is for a bigger cause. And yeah, hopefully I'll be able to bring you guys properly on the journey with me next year. How I'm going to do it, I don't know. But I hope that I can. But anyway, there's me. Thank you so much, guys. If we do not speak, have an amazing Christmas and a happy new year. I will try and jump on beforehand, but I just can't promise because I've got to get this deadline done. Thank you so much for supporting me this year. I appreciate